This video will cover selection and subsettings. We're in 1.3.2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, as we've done in the past, just go ahead and copy and paste the start of the code into a new file with the imports and our file paths, and go ahead and run that to make sure it works. And that's in the same folder as the other Lab 3 assignment. Okay, so you can see that I'm loading the zoning data set, and then I go ahead and do what's called a selection. So a selection, if we go ahead and do a breakpoint, we can run that and do a step, and you can see that a selection is, well, in this case, a huge list. So we can't actually look at it because it's really big, but it's just a big Python list of true false flags to say whether or not something is equal to TPZ. In this case, we're selecting things that are in zoning that are equal to TPZ. And then we subset that, and notice that this doesn't have an equals. It's just going to do it on this particular data set. So it's going to subset this data set. Now, this is going to also, we're going to split up the zoning data set in individual features. In other words, if there's multiple polygons inside of one feature, which can happen, like we talk about the islands of Hawaii, they can be one feature within a shapefile, but it's actually multiple islands. So this is going to split up into individual polygons, and then we're going to go ahead and save that. Now, there's a lot of functions in SPA-PI. So if you're looking for all of them, there is a reference page over here, okay, where you can go through the different libraries in SPA-PI and see what all the functions are. But for class, we're only going to use the ones that I'm covering in the tutorials, or only going to need to use the other ones, the ones that I'm covering. So if you want to do more, feel free to check out the reference. Okay, then we go ahead and split the features and save it, and yeah, we still get those warnings, but that's okay. All right, so now let's say we only want to get the attributes in the acres that in acres have less than 5. So let's say we're looking for small properties, and I'm going to go ahead and comment out this because I don't want to keep seeing those warnings over and over again. Okay, so this is another way of subsetting one, because we can say select less, acres less than 5 in this case. And there's an equals, a greater than or equals to, less than or equals to functions. And and it's done because all we did is go ahead and save it. And that's interesting, we didn't get our warnings because we're only getting small acres, so we didn't have those really big numbers that it was complaining about. Now we can get really fancy with working with attributes in Python. There's all kinds of things we can do. In this example, we want to find the timber production zones, or TPZ. So we're looking for parcels that have TPZ in them. Okay, and here's some code that I'm going to copy and paste. And I'm going to go ahead and run it just to make sure it works. But then let's take a look at what this code does. So we get the number of features, we set up an index as we've done before, we loop while the index is less than the number of features. But here's really the key part, is we're going to get our value for what zoning says. And then we're going to say if the value is not equal to TPZ, delete it. I'm going to get rid of these for now. Okay, so if value is not equal to TPZ, go ahead and delete the feature. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so right now our value is AE-600. So obviously not TPZ. So we're going to go ahead and delete that feature. Now we delete it, we've reduced the number of features by 1, so we want to delete 1 from the number of features. Now this is another one of those shortcut lines of code. This code is identical to num features equals num features minus 1. So this is just shortcut to say take num features and subtract 1 from it. Okay, you can do it either way, it's fine with me. I've just been programming Python a long time, so you'll get used to the shortcuts. You'll also see them a lot on the web. All right, so let's do that again. It's loading our data. And let's scroll down to where our value is. So there's our value. And so we can see that it goes in there and deletes that one. Goes in there and deletes that one. Goes there and deletes that one. Now, we've got 2,000 odd parcels here, so this could take a long time to get to one that has TPZ. So I'm going to put a breakpoint in my else. Okay? So the way this works is if this is true, Python will go into here. Else, it will go into this code. In other words, it goes into here if what you put in the parentheses is true. If it's false, it will go here, which if the value is not equal to TPZ, it'll go into here. In other words, if the value is equal to TPZ, then it'll go into here. So let's get rid of that breakpoint and let's give this a try. Boom. There it is. Yep, the value equals TPZ. Yay, it works. And you can see that it's going to go through, and now it's going to delete everything that isn't TPZ. Well, there's a little problem with that, because we look through our zoning attributes, there's not just TPZ, but there's also TPZ/A, TPZ, etc. So when Melody set this up, she went ahead and did a little more complicated if statement. In other words, in an if statement, what you can do is you can say, if the value is not equal to TPZ, and it's not equal to this, and it's not equal to this, then go ahead and delete the feature. Okay? So in other words, if all of these are true, then it will delete the feature. Otherwise, it's just going to move on to the next feature. Okay? Now what it's going to do is it's going to delete anything that isn't one of these guys. Okay? Now, that's an and. You could also flip this and do it as an or. In other words, we can flip the logic and say if the value is equal to TPZ, or the value is equal to TPZ/A, etc., or the value is equal to TPZ/A, etc. Now in that case, we want to just skip that feature. Otherwise, or else, we want to go and delete it. Okay? So the two sets of code that I just did will do exactly the same thing, but in this case, it may be clearer. This is just another way to look at it, is to say if the value is equal to TPZ, or it's equal to this, or it's equal to this, just move to the next feature. Else, in other words, if it's not equal to this, and it's not equal to that, and it's not equal to that, go ahead and delete the feature. Cool? A little confusing, but you'll get used to it. Play with ands and ors in your if statements. Keep your if statements simple initially, okay? And then go ahead and make them more complex over time. Use the breakpoints and stack data to step through them, and you'll start becoming more and more comfortable with them. And that's it.